Okay guys, I am so excited for this video. Let's just get straight into it. So if you don't know what Stranger Things is, it's a Netflix original show with 2 seasons making up 17 episodes. If you haven't watched it, I 100% think that you should. And try and get to episode 2 or 3. I've heard a lot of people watch episode 1 and then are like, don't like it, not my thing, but then go back to it and get to episode 2 and 3 and really enjoy it. So if you're one of those people, just push through that first episode and see how you go. It's a really good show if you're into that kind of thing and you're into the whole retro-y kind of scene and then sci-fi, and it kind of just all joins everything into one. It's really cool. And what a lot of people don't know or don't realize is that Stranger Things is actually based on government experiments called the Montauk Project. Montauk is a place in Long Island, New York, where the alleged experiments took place between the early and mid-80s. The US government was said to be conducting experiments on children in psychological warfare, either at Camp Hero or the Montauk Air Force Station. The theories, and I guess you could call them theories, events, stemmed from a book that was published by a man, Preston Nichols, called In the Montauk Project's Experiments in Time. And in the book, he goes through how he recovered his repressed memories and how in these memories, he was a subject in the Montauk Project. After this, several other subjects came forward saying that they were also involved in the experiments and that they were going through all their repressed memories and recovering them all. The experiments included things like time travel and different dimensions and psychic abilities. So the Montauk Project ties in with the Philadelphia Project, which was also called the Rainbow Project. The experiments started around World War II, where the US government were trying to find ways to get their ships past the Nazi radars without getting detected so that they could get into Europe. Now this is where it gets sort of the whole thing's confusing, but this is kind of where it gets kind of confusing and there's a lot of things to think about and take in, but sort of just stay with me and keep an open mind. So they say that they succeeded in getting their ships across to Europe without getting detected, but they don't really say how. They kind of keep it hush-hush and kind of avoid that subject sort of thing. But it's said that how they did it was by sending their ships through other dimensions, kind of bypass the Nazi radars. Either way, not long after, the experiments were shut down, possibly due to negative side effects of overexposure to the upside down or other dimensions. So because there was so many people interested in this at the time and wanted to know what was happening, what was going on, and what the whole deal was, they created a movie in 1984 called The Philadelphia Experiment. Now, in 1988, 4 years after the movie was made, a man named Al Black saw the movie. And he claimed that he had such an overwhelming, eerie sort of feeling that he had been there before and he lived through this and he went through this and saw this, not just he'd seen the movie before, because he hadn't, but he just had all this nostalgia from this movie. So he decided to do hypnotherapy, in which a lot of people do to kind of recover past memories or repressed memories. And he found out that his whole life was a lie, including his name. So some of the repressed memories that actually came forward was him working on the Montauk Project and the Philadelphia Project, and that his name was actually Edward Cameron, and he had a brother called Duncan Cameron. Now after this, the brothers kind of got back together, and that they claimed that sometime in the 1940s, Nikola Tesla figured out how to make the USS Eldridge invisible to the Nazis. But while doing this, he opened up a wormhole which got the ship sucked into the future. The brothers say that they jumped off the ship, landing at Camp Hero in 1983. Then the military sent them back through the wormhole to destroy the equipment that was on the Eldridge. Okay, stay with me. So now this is where it gets similar to Stranger Things, but obviously this was years before Stranger Things because Stranger Things hadn't come out yet, obviously. But the show was based on these events. With me? With me, okay. Just remember, these are all just their recovered, repressed memories. Preston Nichols claimed that he worked with Edward Cameron. We'll call him Edward now because Al was his future fake name. Okay, so Al is now Edward. Edward and Al are the same people, but let's call him Edward now. Okay? And he also worked with Duncan on something called the Montauk chair in the 70s. Now, this chair was a piece of furniture that was amplified with magnetics to amplify and heighten psychic powers. Now, both Preston and Edward claim that Duncan was a child born in 1960 with psychic powers. Now, I was a bit all confused by this. So, Duncan was like put into a body, like I won't get into that part of it because it's so confusing. Because that Duncan had these psychic powers, he was put into the experiment on the Montauk chair, and he was the biggest focus on all of it, which in Stranger Things is similar to 11. That is where the theory that 11 is based on Duncan. The first experiment on Duncan was called the seeing eye, in which Duncan could have a piece of hair or something from someone and concentrate on that person and be able to see through their eyes and see what they were seeing, hear what they were hearing, and feel what they were feeling, and it didn't matter where in the world they were. Preston then says that this is when other boys were kind of brought into the experiment. And then some were sent through the portals into like the upside down. And I think this is what Stranger Things has done with having them numbered but having girls instead. So 11 being Duncan, and then having her being 11 and then her sister being 8. But then I sort of don't get this kind of theory where wouldn't they go from like number 1 up sort of thing, so Duncan being number 1 because he was the first one in the kind of experiments, and then the next boy being 2, 3, and so on. So I'm a bit about that part. So Preston says that after several years experimenting on Duncan, they could reliably travel from different places and times, including like Mars and places like that. At one point, Preston was told to turn the chair on and leave it running through August 12th, 1983. And by having another time machine left on, the Montauk project finally created a wormhole to 1943. This is when Edward and Duncan from 1943 came through. Preston tried to keep 1943 Duncan away from 1963 Duncan. Are you still with me? And this is where he realized that time travel was really dangerous and complex, which obviously, like, having two people that are the same people at different ages in the same time, God knows what that could do. Well, I guess they know what this could do. So at this point, Preston and 3 other colleagues made a plan up to kind of use Duncan to sabotage and shut down the whole project. Apparently, in this time, Duncan released a monster or a beast from his subconscious, and the monster is described as being big and creepy and hairy and hungry and nasty. But apparently, people saw the monster differently. That's what I've read. There's a lot of contradicting things. Some say that a lot of people describe the monster the same. Some say people described it completely different. Like each person had their own sort of what the monster looked like sort of thing. I don't know. I feel like when you think of monster, everybody has their own sort of kind of brought up thing, right? So you think of a monster, you might think of something completely different in your head, like an image completely different in your head to what I think of. You might think of something you've seen in a movie or something like that, or you might just think of something completely random just in your head. And I think this is where the idea of the Demogorgon came in. As you can see, it's creepy looking, it has heaps of teeth, and it's just creepy. After this, Preston then went to destroy all the equipment that powered the chair, and as he destroyed it all, it, like, I guess, broke the link between the time wormhole and the monster just disappeared. And all employees that were working on these projects were brainwashed. Then the lower levels of the base were filled with cement. And that's all I have for today. And let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you think this was a thing? Do you think that these guys just all made it up, which I don't think that's really true? I think some parts, if not all parts of the story, are true, because how could so many people have the same or very similar memories? Like, why would you just concoct this whole story? I guess, like, are you gonna make money off it? I don't know. But let me know what you think down below. Do you think this is still happening today somewhere? Or if they just moved the base somewhere else and didn't actually shut the whole thing down? Or is it just a whole coincidence that Stranger Things and this is sort of similar in ways? Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that bell so you get notifications when I post next. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I post every single Wednesday. You'll see me next week. Bye, guys.
And inside the upside down, but all I want is to be found. For me, it's so hard to be normal. My home's a laboratory. Mama's a lecture, lobotomy left me hopelessly lonely. So Papa looks after me. Family tree torn into pieces, so Papa can harness the force of my telekinesis to unlock the secrets of interdimensional travel that increase my nose.